Welcome to the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal. Welcome to today's episode of the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Prack. And today our guest is Lisa Landry. And she is the CEO of Landry Designs, an award-winning interior design firm with a team of over 20 people in Texas, focused on adding value to multifamily properties across the country. She's also a multifamily partner with over $35 million in assets. So Lisa, welcome to the show. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Eileen. I'm excited to be here.
So Lisa, this is going to be an exciting and fun episode because what we love to see is interior design. Those are the things that we focus on, and that's the things that catches our eyes first when we first come up to the property. You know, it's the clubhouse, it's the units themselves, what attracts the residents to the place. And so I'm super excited. And so thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us your expertise.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to it. I started my interior design firm over 20 years ago, and about 15 years ago or so, I had a local property management company reach out to me, and he said that they managed 45 communities and they had 10 properties that needed major CapEx work done in that 1 year. And he'd found our website and could we help with that? And we had never worked on multifamily before. We had just done residential and commercial. And I ended up meeting him, and I had in my mind that there were going to be these really fancy apartments when I drove up, and they weren't. They were B and C class properties. And I was kind of surprised. But then I realized, this is really what we do in residential and commercial. And so we helped him with those. We actually had several of them photographed, and they won a bunch of design awards. And we were so surprised. And we just started learning about the ins and outs and the behind the scenes of how you boost the value of these properties, and, that there's all these investors, and we just didn't really know the behind the scenes of multifamily. And so a few years ago, I started looking at getting out of the stock market, or getting some of my money out of the stock market with the volatility there, and researching real estate. I have some real estate family members that, invest in single family homes or assisted livings, commercial properties. And I started researching asset classes and came across multifamily. And I thought, well, why haven't I ever thought about investing in multifamily before, since we've done, over 100 of these properties now? And really went down the rabbit hole and went on what I call podcast university, where I listen to hundreds of podcasts. Yours is a great education platform as well. And just learned as much as I could. And I started going to conferences and reading every book I could get my hands on. And then started investing, first as a passive investor, and now I'm a GP on, over like $35 million in assets. And I have a multifamily meetup now. And so I've kind of just evolved into still doing the design side of things, which is amazing. And that's really what we bring to the table as the GP, is how can we get the NOI and boost the value of these properties, but also, combining it with being an asset manager on the properties as well.
So how does the process work when you're approached by another sponsor who has an apartment and they come to you and your team and they're like, make this place beautiful, make it attractive? Walk us through that initial steps of how do they get started? What does that look like?
Okay. The thing that we recommend is when they or even putting an LOI in, their letter of intent, if they can reach out to us ahead of time and really kind of talk to us about how big is the leasing office? How many staff are you going to have on site? What are the kinds of things that you're going to be needing? We can talk about budget ranges for that property, and you can plug those numbers into your pro forma and your underwriting. So we like to come on as one of the team players at the very beginning if we can, so that you're really looking at great numbers going forward, and you're not under budgeting or over budgeting for those things. So once we learn that you have a property either, going to LOI or even under contract, we do a Zoom call typically, because a lot of these properties are across the country. They're not all just local, and we're based in the DFW area, but we go all over the country. And so we'll do a Zoom call with them about their specific property. And it's really a getting to know you and getting to know the property call, where, we're showing them a lot of before and afters and talking about all of the elements that we might get help with, and then diving more into their property. How does it look now? How does the website look now? What is the brick? Are y'all thinking of painting the brick, or are you going to just paint the trim? What does the current leasing office look like? What does the model unit look like? What are the amenities like now? Because we can assist with all of those elements. So getting that really honed in budget, I think, is the first step. And then once they, get it under contract and close on the deal, then we can hit the ground running with starting on the project. So that's kind of step one. And then step two is we walk them through all these CapEx projects as they're going. We work in conjunction with the contractor that they're using through the property management company. And then we start with, whichever elements that they're going to go forward with, they can be done in conjunction with each other. It doesn't have to be just one at a time. We typically recommend starting with the leasing office because that's like the jewel of the property. It's the very center of the property usually, and it's the first impression space. So how does it look when you drive up? How does the paint look? How does the signage look? Is it easy to find? Is there directional signage to the leasing office? And then once you walk up, is it spotlessly clean? Is the front door scratched? Does the front door squeak when you open it? I mean, we're literally looking at every one of those elements once we get started on the project. And if it's, local, we go right away and take pictures and measure and all those kind of things. And if it's out of state, then we fly there to measure and take pictures and get started on it. But we're really assessing everything about that leasing office when you walk in. How does it smell? How does it sound? Are you greeted immediately? Does someone stand up to greet you? Everything that you see visually, what's the flooring like? What are the walls like? What's the lighting? Is it dark in there? Is it functional? What are the traffic paths like? Really assessing everything about it. And it doesn't have to be high end. I mean, a lot of times we're specializing in B and C class properties, so not luxury properties. These are workforce housing properties a lot of times. So it doesn't need to be high end, but it does need to look great. And what we've found is that people that live in apartments, they would love to maybe live in a house and maybe eventually will, but they go look at model homes a lot. And so if they can walk into a leasing office and it look like a model home, they can envision kind of how their unit might look. That's a big impression to make on them. And, it's mostly women who decide where they're going to live, but our multifamily world is primarily led by men. A lot of these syndication teams are men, and they sort of overlook the design side of things in many cases. And so we try to bring them back, like, let's don't just do all exterior CapEx construction work things. Let's focus on some of these visual things that are very impactful for women when they're looking for property or for, a place to live.
Yeah, you make a really good point because a lot of times we hear operators and people talk about, they'll bring their general contractors to help walk the properties, look at, coming up with their capital expenditures and the renovation budgets. But rarely do you hear about the design team coming along or helping to partner along with them during the entire process to add those touches, those softer touches, the aesthetics to the property. And so is that typically what you also see in your space as well?
Yes, it really is. And when a team brings us on, usually because something looks so bad and they need some help with it, maybe they've heard that we can help. Mm-hmm. And then once we start working with them, once we've done one project with them and they realize what an impact it can have if we, plan for this ahead of time and allow a little more budget for it, then they use us on all of their properties going forward. And what we found is when we can, renovate the leasing office, help with exterior paint selection and renderings, help with the website even. What does that look like? I mean, you want people to come and see the property. That's the first thing they're looking at is the website. What do those images look like? What does your logo look like? So this whole image and branding and this cohesive feel of the property is super important. What does the model unit look like when they go inside? So if we can get all of that looking cohesive, we found that these properties are able to elevate their tenant base much faster, and which means they're able to implement their business plan much faster. And they're typically selling in like 2 years instead of 5 years, which is what most people's, business plans are that we work with. So our goal is how can we get the tenant base elevated, the community safer, nicer, making it where residents want to maintain the property and take care of the property. How can we make the bark park look nicer? How can we make the pool area look nicer? All those little things are what make this community be worth more they're going to pay more rent to live in a community like this. The other thing we found with leasing offices in particular, though, is that it's not just these potential residents that come in to look at the leasing office that it impacts. It's also the residents that already live there. They come in all the time. A lot of times these operators will tell us, well, the leasing office doesn't really get used that much. Like they pay online. They're supposed to put their maintenance request in online. But that door, because we're on site on these properties a lot, that is a revolving door, the leasing office. People come in all the time. They're coming to pick up packages. A lot of times there aren't package lockers in this, B and C class space. And they're coming to talk to the leasing agent or the manager. And so there is a lot of traffic coming through. So if it looks really nice, again, when their renewal comes up, they're more apt to renew, which saves you a lot in unit turns. So that's helping with the NOI also. And then kind of the final thing, it's really the trifecta we think of. The third thing is that the on-site team loves working there. They think it's so beautiful to come to a space that looks like this every day. And you end up having less turnover of your staff, which again helps boost the NOI because you're not retraining. And they also feel like they can charge these higher rents easier because they know that the property has been elevated. So again, it doesn't have to be fancy, but it does need to look amazing.
How is the dynamic between like your team, the general contractors and the owners? How does that all come together and how do you communicate?
Yeah. If it's if it's local, a lot of times we're doing that on site and we'll meet the ownership team and the property management team and the contractor with our multifamily specialist designer and assistants out there. So it's very collaborative, as much as we can help, we do. We're just one of the team members. We do a lot of Zoom calls also just for efficiency of time. And a lot of times they'll have the regional manager sit in on those calls, the on-site manager, sometimes the leasing agent, the asset managers. A lot of us can be on the call, but we're leading the process. We have a very systemized process that we lead people through. It's very easy. We try to take as much off the operators' plates as possible. So we walk them through step by step. This is what we need to do next. Here's what our design options are for you. Do you like option 1 or option 2? And then we hit the ground running. We get everything ordered. We actually go deliver everything. We just, again, take as much off of their list as possible. We even have checklists for their team to work on prior to the installation, which is what we call Big Reveal Day. So all of those things are what, as an owner, a multifamily owner, that I want help with. From any contractor I work with, I want it to be as smooth as possible and as easy as possible, and me not having to chase a contractor around. So that's what we always try to be, is where we're taking care of everything behind the scenes and they can just, move on with the other things they need to do.
In the leasing office part of it, where's the biggest place where most people spend the most, but it results in the least impact? And where is the place where people maybe don't spend as much attention to, but actually provides the most impact?
I think one of the areas you can save budget is on the flooring, because you can put in like the luxury vinyl tile like you're using in the unit. So you don't have to use anything really fancy in the leasing office. And this shows them what their unit's going to look like. So that's an area you can really save. I think the area that people avoid or don't really focus on is lighting. They have either recessed lighting or fluorescent lighting. We always say that's the jewelry for the space, and you need to put some kind of decorative lighting in. Again, think of a model home when you walk in, how that looks. And we want something that's very eye-catching. Our signature look is very dramatic and typically very colorful. So, we don't want it to look cutesy in any way or theme-y in any way. We want it to look very high style, but memorable for somebody to say, oh, don't you remember that blue leasing office that was so cool, or that orange one or that green one? And again, going by your logo color, your color palette for the property, what the brick color or stucco color is on the property. We have to make sure that all that's cohesive. And then again, that image is, all the way through. Even desks, though, like the leasing office desks, a lot of times those are giant and they're old and they're dark brown, and they take up a lot of visual space and physical space, and they sort of suck the light out of the room. So a lot of times we'll use even like white desks, just solid white. So it's real crisp and bright. making sure you have a really good traffic path, that things aren't too crowded. It's everything about the way it feels when you walk in, and how do you make the space feel larger? What kind of art are you using on the walls? Where are you using mirrors? If you ever use a mirror, a lot of people use mirrors in places that they shouldn't. They think, oh, it's going to bounce the light around the room and make the space feel bigger, which is true. But what is the reflection in the mirror? So if the reflection is a closet door, then you're just seeing two doors.
Right.
If the reflection is a ceiling fan, you're just seeing two fans. So we have to be real careful about what we use where. And if there are any interesting architectural elements already in the space, like a fireplace in the leasing office, or a 2-story space or beams or anything like that, we really highlight that. We try to take what you have and highlight it without spending a lot more money, on building new architecture. For example, we did one recently that they had a red brick fireplace that went 2 stories up, and it was a B-class property. And the ceiling was brown wood slats, like solid, kind of a golden brown. And it was wood. It was beautiful. But, we suggested to the operator to paint the fireplace black, the brick black, and the ceiling black, the color called caviar that we like to use. And, we thought, oh, he's probably not going to go for it. But he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that made such a difference in that space. And then we accented with bright yellow and silvers. And, we were able to keep that cool ceiling, but highlight everything with the black. So
it's like a focal point.
Yeah. When you walk in, it's very dramatic and memorable. If people are looking at multiple properties, which they usually do, they're usually going in one day to property after property after property. So what can you do to set yourself apart, with customer service? And with us being on site for so long while we're working on these, we make a lot of notes about the customer service experience. What are we hearing when people are coming in? Are people greeted immediately? And we just share that with the ownership team because we feel like that's super important as well.
After the leasing office, what is the next space that you would focus on, or is the next most impactful area?
I do think the exterior of the property is super important. And so assessing, everything about the exterior, like when you're driving around, is there trash? Can you find, the leasing office? Again, are things freshly painted? What does the landscaping look like? So I think that exterior is super important. And then, the amenities obviously are very important. That's what people are looking at on the website. A lot of times we'll try to add a little business center of some sort, even if it's a small leasing office, just so you can have one more amenity on that list. And then as soon as they come and they're in the leasing office and they want to see a unit, if it's a property that has a model, that model better look just as good as the leasing office. So we're really looking at how does that feel? Like we're working on a property right now that has fur downs over the kitchen bar, and we're taking those out. We're recommending taking those out on, all of the units. It just opens everything up so much. And the other thing that we assist with is unit interior design packages. So you might test like a silver, a gold, and a platinum package, and they have different elements in them. So the platinum might have, the fur down removed, but it also has pendant lights over it. And maybe you're putting in a micro hood instead of the people, the residents having to have their microwave on their tiny little counter that there's not very much space. So you can charge, extra for that, and then just test the rents with these different packages. So we help design those packages with owners, and, they can just kind of rinse and repeat as they do their unit turns. And then just assessing also like little things inside the walk-in closet or inside a closet of a unit. What color are the shelves? What color are the rods? What color are the cabinets in the bathroom? What color are the cabinets in the kitchen? In the shower, are you using one of the bowed rods to give them more room in the shower? It's assessing every little thing about the space because it's those details that set your property apart from the other ones.
It really sounds that it's more of an experience that you want the potential residents or even current residents to feel as they're walking through, the leasing office to the exterior, the grounds, into their own units. And how can they visualize, like, how can I live in this space? How can I utilize this space through the design and through the, the little touches that you add here and there to each of the different units and across the property itself?
Yes, it really is. Because if you can get people to renew and you're still increasing rents, then you're just saving so much money and your net operating income is going up so much. And I mean, little things like walking the breezeways, and we do this when we're on site, walk the breezeways. Do those breezeways need to be power washed? Do the lights in the breezeways need to be changed to LED so it's brighter and safer feeling? Do the door knockers on each door need to be painted or changed? It's the smallest little things that people just get used to seeing a certain way, that when we come in as an objective opinion, then we're more like the potential resident that's going to live there. Like, well, what's wrong with this? Why does this look like this? And why do you allow all these people to have all these, messy things on their balcony or in front of their apartment, things like that. So it's being, another set of eyes that really is looking at things from a visual perspective that we focus on.
Have you been able to determine a property that before they utilize a design team such as your group beforehand and after they've incorporated the design, what the overall impact is to their operating income?
We have had many operating groups tell us that they just had no idea the impact that it was going to have. And we have testimonials on our website and everything that anyone's welcome to go look at. They tell us, they even say things like, this is the piece we were missing in our syndications or in our operations, because now they're transformed so unbelievably and they're able to sell them quickly for a lot more, than they bought them for. And we continue to, every time they buy another property, like there's one group that we work with that buys a lot of properties and they buy out of state in different states, and they just continue to buy and buy and buy, and they always get us in early. And we love that when we already know the teams, and it just goes faster and faster and faster and gets even more efficient. So they have told us that it's very beneficial, and we're happy to help in any way we can.
On the projects that you worked on and what you've seen in the space, is it beneficial to have that model unit furnished and set up and ready for a potential resident to come in and see it? Or is it more beneficial to just having like an open space and, maybe a current tenant's residence house that they can just walk through, or an empty unit? Like, which one kind of works the best in the space based off of what you've seen so far?
I think it depends on how big the property is. One of the properties that I'm a GP on is only 108 units, and the occupancy is always really high, like 96 or 97%. So we don't really want to have a model unit all the time because we just want to go ahead and rent it. It's just small enough that we can rent it. So what we decided to do was take a unit that was turning. We did a complete make ready on it. We went in and staged it. And we do that if it's in the DFW area. We can do staging also. We went in and staged it, had it professionally photographed and videoed, and then we destaged it. So we were able to rent it. But we do have those photos on the website and the video walkthrough that they can see so they can get a sense of it. I think if you can have a live model, if you have a bigger property and you always have, let's say 5 or 10 units, open, or 10 units, we usually have maybe 5 units open at a time, 4 or 5. But if you have 10 units, then I think it's best to go ahead and have a model. People love walking through the model. You're also building the relationship with that on-site team, with the on-site manager or leasing agent. That gives you a lot more time to talk to the potential resident and see, what they're like, and ask questions about them and get to know them. So they're much more apt to go ahead and rent with you, getting to know them better. So I think it's a great thing to have a model unit if you possibly can. If you don't have a model, then you can do mini models for any of the vacant units that you have. And that's where you're not putting any furniture in, but you're just going in and putting a few accessories in, a few things in the kitchen, a few things in the bathroom, maybe a couple things in the closet, so that it looks nice, but it's empty. There's no furniture there.
Got it. So Lisa, after you've been doing this for quite some time now, what's next for you, and what are you looking to focus on in the upcoming future here?
I'm still focused on Landry Designs, our design company, and growing it. We're, again, moving to other states. And so that business is great. We love working on property. So I love that part of the business. And then I'm also continuing to buy multifamily. I started a meetup group in the DFW area that's monthly, and we have all kinds of speakers come in and education. And so I'm very focused on sort of running both of those businesses at the same time and continuing to grow both.
And so, Lisa, how has real estate investing impacted your life so far?
Well, my taxes have been very benefited from depreciation. I didn't have that before, and I just really didn't know about that. So I think, my net worth has increased greatly in the last 4 years. I've probably doubled my net worth in the last 4 years just from these acquisitions as a GP. And I don't have the volatility that I had in the stock market. I was really stressed about that and worried about that a lot, and trying to always study it and that kind of thing. And I just think multifamily real estate in general is so much less volatile, and it's so much easier to scale and know what you're getting and sleep well at night. And it can be a little bit more passive income than trying to pick stocks and all of that. So it's been a great benefit. Plus, I think it's just a really fun industry. The people that I've met in the multifamily space, the ecosystem is just amazing people. Most of the people that I've met have been very successful already at their other career. And then when they find multifamily, whether they're a passive investor or an active investor, they are going to be successful because that's the kind of people they are. So I like the community.
And if there was one thing that you know now about real estate that you wish you knew when you first started, what would that be?
I would say that really just building relationships. I would say that when you meet someone at an event that you go to have sort of what you're going to bring to a team, if you're wanting to be a GP or an active investor, what you bring to a team ready to talk about at the very beginning, to say, not your whole life story, but here's my goal. I'm looking to GP in the next year. This is what I bring to the table. I'm either, I have high net worth or high liquidity or the design background or contractor background, or I'm an engineer. I want to do asset management, or I'm a capital raiser. To be able to quickly get that across to someone and to sort of ask the favor of, if you hear of anyone that's wanting to add to their team that needs this piece of the puzzle, would you please pass along my name? I think that I would do that a lot earlier in my career of investing than I did at the beginning.
And what is the one thing that sets the successful people apart in real estate?
It's relationships. I think going to every event that you can and getting to know everyone in the community that you can. I mean, reading as many books as you can and reaching out to those authors and really building relationships. One of the conferences that I went to, somebody shared with me that they focus on not giving away 100 business cards and getting 100 business cards, but building a deep relationship with maybe 3 people a day that you're there at a conference. That really struck me, because you're either having all these surface conversations that really aren't deep and you really don't know that person, or you could invest that time in 2 or 3 people a day and really get to know them, and then nurture that relationship and give it legs by having phone calls or coffees or meeting up at the next conference, following up with them. That type of relationship building, I think, is very, very beneficial.
Awesome. And Lisa, if our listeners also wanted to find out more about you, where's the best place that they can go to reach out?
I think the 2 places, one is LandryDesigns.com, which is our design site. And if you're interested in investing and you would like to team up with us for any multifamily investments, then the real estate site is www.growaboveandbeyond.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that today with us, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.